Why silence is the most powerful weapon. Stoic wisdom. Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into a topic that is as old as time itself, and yet more relevant than ever in this noisy, chaotic world. The art of silence, the discipline of self-control, and the stoic power of walking away. You see, when people try to drag you into arguments, when they mock you, when they try to push your buttons, your instinct might be to fight back, to explain, to justify. But the Stoics, Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, Seneca, taught us something radically different. They taught us that silence is not weakness, it is not surrender. Silence is mastery, silence is a weapon, silence is freedom. In this video, we're going to explore why closing the door on toxic people, arguments, and negativity is the ultimate Stoic move, and why those you leave behind will never fully recover. Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to hear might just shift the way you deal with conflict, pain, and betrayal forever. Section 1. The Power of Silence. Let's start with a simple question. Why does silence hurt more than words? Imagine this. Someone insults you. They expect you to fire back. They want a reaction, an explosion, a defense. That's the game. That's the trap. But instead, you say nothing. You look at them, calm, still, untouchable. Or better yet, you simply walk away. That's silence. That is louder than anything you could have said, because silence exposes them. It reflects their insecurity back at them. It shows that their words have no power over you, and in that moment, you've won. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." Think about that. The best revenge is not to sink to their level, not to trade insult for insult, not to waste your energy in a battle that leads nowhere. Your silence is a mirror. It makes people face their own EMP, tiness. And when you combine silence with the act of closing the door, ending the relationship, walking away from the argument, stepping out of the toxic environment, you take back your control completely. Section 2. The Stoic Door. Now, let's go deeper. Why is closing the door so final? Why can't people recover when you decide to leave? Because doors represent boundaries. A door separates what's inside from what's outside. When you close it, you declare, "This part of my life is no longer accessible to you." And here's the truth most people don't want to admit. They expect you to keep the door open. They expect you to always be available for arguments, for validation, for attention. So when you shut it and lock it, it shocks them. It feels like a loss they can't replace. Seneca said, "Associate with those who will make a better man of you. Welcome those whom you yourself can improve. The process is mutual, for men learn while they teach." What happens when someone no longer makes you better? What happens when instead of lifting you up, they drag you down? Section 3. Why silence cuts deeper than words. Have you ever noticed this? An insult can sting, but a lack of response? That can haunt someone for weeks. Why? Because words can be debated, argued, twisted. But silence cannot be manipulated. Silence leaves the other person alone with their thoughts. When you don't reply, they replay the scene over and over in their mind. Why didn't he respond? Did I go too far? Did she stop caring? Was I not worth a single word? That's the devastating power of silence. It forces people to face themselves. Epictetus, the Stoic teacher who once was a slave, put it brilliantly. If anyone tells you that a certain person speaks ill of you, do not make excuses about what is said of you, but answer, "He was ignorant of my other faults, else he would not have mentioned these alone." Do you see the wisdom here? Instead of arguing, instead of defending, you use silence or even gentle humor to show that you are above the attack. This is why silence cuts so deep. It gives them nothing to push against. It denies them the reaction they crave. It leaves them questioning their own worth. And when you finally close the door, cutting off access completely, the silence becomes permanent. For them, it's like screaming into an empty room. Section 4. The psychology of closing doors. Now let's go even deeper into psychology. Why is it that when you finally walk away, when you finally cut ties, people feel it so intensely? It comes down to something psychologists call the Zeigarnik effect. This effect explains why people remember unfinished business far more vividly than completed tasks. Think about it. Songs you didn't finish, projects left undone, conversations cut short. They linger in your mind, nagging at you. Closing the door on someone without drama, without explanation, creates that same effect. They feel unfinished. They feel unresolved. They feel a gap that can't be closed. And that's why they don't recover. You've become a closed chapter they can't reopen. And because human beings crave closure, the fact that you gave them none becomes unbearable. This is where Stoicism shines. The Stoics believed in controlling what is within your power and letting go of what isn't. So when you shut the door, you're not trying to hurt them, you're simply saying, "I choose my peace over your chaos. I choose my dignity over your approval. I choose my future over this dead weight." And that's something they cannot argue with. Section 5. Silence as a Stoic strategy. Now let's talk about how the Stoics used silence strategically. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, faced daily attacks. Political schemes, betrayal, criticism. Did he chase after every insult? Did he waste time explaining himself to his enemies? No. Instead, he wrote in his private journal what we now call meditations. The best way to avenge yourself is not to be like your enemy. Think about the power in that. He could have used armies, punishments, endless arguments. Instead, he chose silence, composure, and restraint. Why? Because silence has two incredible advantages. It conserves your energy. Words burn energy. Arguments drain focus. Silence keeps your strength intact. It shifts power back to you. When you don't respond, you don't play their game. You make them play yours. Seneca also reminded us, we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. Silence forces the other person into that very trap. They start imagining your thoughts, your reasons, your plans, and often their imagination tortures them far more than your words ever could. This is why silence is not cowardice, it is strategy. It's the art of knowing when speaking is a waste and when walking away is victory. Section 6. Real-life scenario, the argument you don't enter. Picture this. You're at a family gathering. Someone, you know the type, decides to take a jab at you. Maybe it's about your job, your lifestyle, your choices. Everyone at the table is waiting for your response. Now, most people would fire back, defend themselves, prove a point. But you take a sip of water, smile calmly, and say nothing. The silence lingers. The person looks uneasy. The others shift in their chairs. Who looks foolish now? You see, you didn't even need to fight. The moment you refused to take the bait, the aggressor lost power. This is what Stoicism teaches us. You cannot control their words, but you can control your reaction. And sometimes the most powerful reaction is none at all. Section 7. Real-life scenario. Walking away from toxicity. Here's another one. Imagine you're in a relationship where every argument turns into a battlefield. You explain yourself, you defend, you shout, but nothing changes. One day, you stop explaining, you stop defending, you stop fig-ting. Instead, you quietly pack your things, close the door, and never look back. At first, they may laugh. They'll be back. But then days pass, weeks, months, and suddenly they realize you're not coming back. You've taken the one thing they can't replace, your presence. This is the power of the closed door. It teaches others that your energy, your love, your time are not infinite resources, they are privileges, and when someone misuses them, you withdraw them. That absence, it hits harder than any speech you could have given. Section 8. The Stoic Rule of Control. Now let's break this down into a Stoic principle. Epictetus taught that the key to freedom is understanding the difference between what is within your control and what is not. You cannot control what people say about you. You cannot control how they treat you. You cannot control whether they gossip, insult, or betray. But you can control how you respond, and you can control whether or not they remain in your life. This is the Stoic rule of control, and it is the foundation of silence and closed doors. Because when you waste your time trying to change others, you lose, but when you master yourself, you win. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Silence and boundaries are simply the application of that truth. Section 9. How to practice silence. Daily. Okay, so now the big question, how do we actually practice this? Here are some Stoic-inspired steps you can use daily. Pause before reacting. The Stoics called this the discipline of assent. When something happens, don't react instantly. Take a breath. Ask, is this worth my energy? Use selective silence. Not every battle needs your voice. Learn when to speak and when to let silence speak for you. Withdraw with dignity. Walking away doesn't need drama. A calm exit without insults is the ultimate power move. Close small doors first. Practice with minor situations. Ignore the rude driver. Let the co-worker's snide remark pass. Over time, you'll gain mastery. Protect your peace. Your silence is not just the absence of words, it is the presence of peace. Choose peace over pointless conflict. Section 10. The Silence of Legends. Think of the greatest leaders, thinkers, and warriors. They weren't the ones shouting the loudest. They weren't the ones arguing endlessly. Alexander the Great was feared not for his words, but for his decisive actions. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire quietly, often choosing patience over fury. Even modern icons, people like Nelson Mandela, used silence, patience, and restraint to outlast their enemies. Why? Because noise fades, words fade, but silence echoes. It is remembered, it is feared, it is respected, and when paired with the finality of a closed door, it becomes unforgettable. Section 11. The emotional strength to walk away. Let's be honest, silence isn't easy. Walking away isn't easy. Closing a door, especially on someone you once cared about, can feel like tearing off a piece of yourself. But here's the truth. Strength is not proven in how much you can cling to. Strength is proven in what you can let go of. Think of a soldier laying down his weapon, refusing to fight a meaningless battle. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. The Stoics believed that attachment to what is harmful is slavery. Freedom comes from detachment. Marcus Aurelius said, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." We can extend this. If it does not bring peace, do not hold on to it. If it does not bring growth, do not entertain it. It takes immense emotional strength to choose silence where your ego screams for revenge. It takes immense emotional strength to close the door when your heart longs to keep it open. But remember this. Every door you close creates space for a better one to open. Section 12. Why they can't handle your silence. Now let's flip the perspective. Why is it that those you walk away from struggle so deeply with your silence? It's because silence removes the fuel they feed on. The manipulator thrives on your reaction. The narcissist thrives on your attention. The toxic friend thrives on your availability. Take those away, and what are they left with? Themselves. And here's the secret. Most people can't stand being alone with themselves. That's why they project, blame, and attack. Seneca wrote, "A man who suffers before it is necessary suffers more than is necessary." Your silence forces them into exactly that, suffering they bring upon themselves. Their own guilt, insecurity, and emptiness echo louder in the absence of your voice. So while you walk forward into peace, they spiral in the silence you left behind. Section 13. The Stoic Art of Detachment. Now, let's get practical. Detachment is not about being cold or unfeeling. It's about clarity. The Stoics practiced premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. They would imagine the worst-case scenarios, loss, betrayal, hardship, not to live in fear, but to prepare their minds. When you expect that people will hurt, disappoint, or misunderstand you, you are less shaken when it happens. So when the time comes to close the door, you do so with calm, not rage. When the time comes to stay silent, you do so with discipline, not resentment. Detachment allows you to see relationships as they are, not as your emotions wish them to be. And once you see clearly, you realize silence and boundaries are not cruelty, they are necessity. Section 14. The Power of Absence. We often think power is about presence, being seen, being heard, being known. But absence can be far more powerful. Why? Because absence creates mystery, absence creates scarcity, absence creates respect. Think of a mentor who rarely speaks, but when they do, every word carries weight. Think of a leader who doesn't chase attention, but whose absence in a room is immediately felt. That's the power of absence. When you silence someone and close the door, your absence becomes their teach. They realize too late that your presence was valuable, and that realization haunts them more than anything you could have said. This is why absence is remembered longer than arguments. Your silence becomes the loudest thing in their memory. Section 15. Story. The general who walked away. Let me share a story inspired by Stoic principles. A Roman general was once insulted publicly by a rival senator. Everyone expected the general to retaliate, to duel, to demand justice. Instead, the general simply bowed his head, said nothing, and left the Senate hall. Days later, his rival found himself isolated. People whispered, Why did the general not respond? Did he know something? Was he too great to care? The silence destroyed the rival's credibility more than any accusation could have. The general had proven he was untouchable, not because of his words, but because of his restraint. And that is Stoicism in action. When you refuse to be dragged into the mud, your very silence elevates you. When you walk away, you don't just close a door, you build a wall of dignity that no insult can climb. Section 16. The hidden freedom of closing doors. Here's something most people never realize until much later. Every door you close sets you free. Think about it. When you keep toxic people in your life, you spend hours overthinking, replaying conversations, defending yourself in your mind. That mental weight chains you down. But when you close the door, the weight vanishes. Suddenly, you can breathe again. Suddenly, you have energy for things that actually matter. This is why Stoics placed so much importance on simplicity. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, if you seek tranquility, do less, or more accurately, do what's essential. Closing doors is the act of removing the non-essential. It is subtracting the noise so you can hear the signal. And the freedom that comes with that, it is priceless. Section 17. Rebuilding after you walk away. Here's the truth many people overlook. Walking away is not just about leaving them behind. It's about building yourself forward. Once the door is closed, you have a choice. You can either look back with regret, or you can use that silence to rebuild stronger than ever. How? Redefine your values. Ask yourself, what do I actually want from my relationships, from my life? Build new standards. Invest in yourself. The energy you use to waste on arguments and explanations, pour it into growth, reading, fitness, skill building. Strengthen your inner circle. Surround yourself with people who respect your silence, who don't drain you with drama. Embrace solitude. Learn to enjoy your own company. Remember, if you cannot stand to be alone with yourself, you'll always tolerate the wrong company. Seneca put it perfectly. True happiness is to enjoy the present without anxious dependence upon the future. Rebuilding after you walk away is about crafting a life so peaceful, so strong, that you never again feel tempted to reopen doors that should remain closed. Section 18. Daily Stoic Silence Rituals. Silence is not something you only use in conflict, it's a daily discipline. Here are Stoic-inspired silence rituals you can practice every day. Morning silence. Before speaking to anyone, spend 5 minutes in quiet reflection. Marcus Aurelius began his mornings by journaling in silence, preparing his mind for the day. Silent meals. Once a day, eat without distractions. No phone, no conversation. Just awareness of the food, the moment, the present. Silent walks. Epictetus often walked quietly, observing the world. Practice walking in silence, listening instead of speaking. Evening silence. End the day with reflection. Instead of arguing online, instead of debating endlessly, write down your thoughts and leave them in the journal, not in the world. These small rituals build inner strength. They train your mind to find peace without noise. Section 19. Turning restraint into discipline. Anyone can be silent once. Anyone can walk away once. But Stoicism isn't about moments. It's about discipline. How do you turn restraint into a lifestyle? The answer lies in habit. Every time you resist an unnecessary argument, you strengthen your self-control. Every time you choose silence over gossip, you sharpen your focus. Every time you close a door with dignity, you deepen your freedom. It's like lifting weights. At first it feels heavy, but over time, silence becomes your natural state, not your forced response. Marcus Aurelius trained himself with constant reminders. You have power over your mind, not outside events. And with each repetition, his restraint became unshakable. So too can yours. Section 20. Story, the Master of Silence. Let me tell you another story. There was once a Stoic philosopher who had many enemies. People mocked him, insulted him, tried to provoke him, yet he never responded. One day, a student asked him, "Master, why do you not defend yourself? Do you not care what they say?" The philosopher smiled and said, "If a man handed you a rotten fish, would you take it? If not, why would you accept his rotten words?" And with that, he walked away. That student never forgot the lesson, because in that single act of silence, the philosopher had taught more about power, dignity, and peace than 1,000 arguments ever could. Section 21. Advanced Stoic Lessons on Silence. By now, you know silence is powerful, but the Stoics didn't just stop at "don't respond." They saw silence as part of a larger philosophy. The discipline of desire, not craving validation from others. The discipline of action, doing what's right, not what feels good in the moment. The discipline of assent, controlling which thoughts you accept into your mind. Silence ties into all three. When you stay quiet, you prove you don't crave validation. When you wall, back away, you show that your actions are guided by reason, not impulse. When you choose not to argue, you master your mind instead of letting emotions control you. This is why silence is more than just a tactic. It's a reflection of your inner mastery. Section 22. Handling the guilt after walking away. But let's be honest, closing a door often brings guilt. You wonder, did I do the right thing? Was I too harsh? What if they needed me? This is natural. Humans are wired for connection. But here's where Stoicism offers clarity. Epictetus taught, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." What does that mean here? It means people might call you cold. They might say you abandoned them. They might say you're selfish. But if walking away protects your peace and your dignity, it is the wise choice. Remember, you are not responsible for fixing others. You are responsible for mastering yourself. So when guilt comes knocking, remind yourself, silence and boundaries are not cruelty. They are self-respect. Section 23. The ultimate freedom of silence. Here's something beautiful. When silence becomes your strength, you are free in a way most people never know. Insults no longer shake you. Betrayal no longer breaks you. Opinions no longer bind you. Because you know that none of those things are within your control, and you refuse to give them power. Marcus Aurelius said, "It is not death that a man should fear, but he should fear never beginning to live." And living fully begins when you stop living for others' approval. Silence frees you to live for your values, your vision, your peace. That is the ultimate freedom, to be untouchable by noise. Section 24. Story, the king who chose silence. Let me share another story. A king was once accused of corruption by his enemies. They spread rumors in every corner of the kingdom. His advisers begged him to make a speech to defend himself. But the king refused. he said, "Time will be my defender. My deeds will be my voice." Months passed. The rumors faded. His integrity proved itself in his actions, not his words, and those who accused him, they were forgotten. The king's silence had outlasted the noise. And that is a Stoic truth. Noise always dies, but silence endures. Section 25. When to break the silence. Now, here's something important. Silence is powerful, but silence is not always the answer. There are times when speaking is necessary, when defending someone who cannot defend themselves, when standing for truth in the face of injustice, when your silence would cause harm to the innocent. The Stoics were not cowards, they were not passive. They believed in speaking truth with courage, but only when it mattered. So the real lesson is this: don't waste your words on battles that don't matter. Save them for the ones that do. That way, when you do speak, your words carry weight. Section 26. Choosing your battles. The great Stoics knew something most people never learn. Not every battle deserves your sword. Life is full of petty arguments, empty accusations, and shallow insults. If you fought every single one, you'd waste your life in noise. The true warrior saves his strength for what truly matters. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You will find rest if you do every act of your life as if it were your last." Think about that. Would you waste your last day on earth in a meaningless argument, or would you walk away in silence with dignity? Section 27. How silence builds authority. Have you noticed this? The people who talk the least are often the most respected. Why? Because silence creates gravity. It makes people lean in. It makes them listen harder. When you are selective with your words carry weight. When you don't react to every provocation, people realize this person cannot be shaken. And that's the essence of Stoic authority, not being loud, but being unshakable. Section 28. The long-term power of restraint. In the short term, people may mock you for being silent, they may laugh when you walk away, but in the long term, silence always wins, because noise fades, rumors fade, lies fade, but the dignity you kept, the doors you closed, the peace you protected, that remains. And when the dust settles, people will remember not what you argued, but how you carried yourself. That is the long-term power of restraint. Section 29. Story. The warrior who refused revenge. A warrior was once betrayed by his closest ally. Everyone expected him to take bloody revenge. Instead, he walked away, never mentioning the betrayal again. Years later, the betrayer's life fell apart. He was consumed by guilt and paranoia. The warrior, he had built an empire, free from bitterness. The lesson is clear. Your silence punishes them more than your revenge ever could. Section 30. The conclusion. Silence them and close the door. So let's bring it all together. Silence is not weakness, it is strength. Closing the door is not cruelty, it is clarity. Walking away is not surrender, it is victory. The Stoics remind us that true power lies in mastering ourselves. When we choose silence over reaction, when we choose dignity over chaos, when we choose to close doors that no longer serve us, we rise above. And those we leave behind, they may never recover. Not because you punished them, but because they are forced to face the emptiness inside themselves. So my challenge to you is this. Look at your life. Which doors need to be closed? Which arguments deserve only your silence? Which parts of your past are still stealing your peace? Close them, silence them, walk forward with dignity, because your future is far too valuable to be wasted on noise. Narrator. Firm, closing tone. Remember, silence is not the absence of power. Silence is power. Use it wisely. Call to action. If this message resonated with you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who needs to hear it today. And if you're ready to keep building your inner strength through Stoicism, make sure to hit that subscribe button, because the journey doesn't end here. Stay silent, stay strong, stay stoic.